Hi, welcome.
Hello. Welcome to the Transforming Lives panel podcast. I'm one of your hosts, Charmaine, and Mitzi is here with me, and we have a guest. But customarily, before we start, just join me in a brief breathing, grounding exercise so that we can be centered and be in one accord as we continue the podcast. Let go of the tensions, the stress, the things that didn't go well during the day. Just take a deep breath in through your nose and out through your mouth, in and out, letting go of the stress of the day, letting go of the tension, letting go of all the things that needs to be done. Just breathe in and out, and let's just be present for the next 30 to 45 minutes. And as you breathe in and out again, just join me in the room. And thank you for taking the time to breathe with us. And today we have a special guest, Sophia Dimas. And Sophia is a woman of remarkable versatility and depth, having navigated three distinctly different careers over the course of her life. For a decade, she immersed herself into the world of architecture, working alongside the eminent futurist and environmentalist Buckminster Fuller. Following this, she channeled her creative energies into the fashion industry, running her own couture fashion business. Her journey took a profound turn as she became a mental health therapist, and she currently serves as the in-house counselor of a residence for ex-trafficked women. Sophia, it's such an honor and a privilege to have you on the podcast. Is there anything else you would like to add other than being an author to that introduction or bio?
Thank you for that introduction. Thank you. It is my privilege to be here.
How were those transitions from being in architecture? I know architecture and fashion can go hand in glove, but how has those transitions occurred? What were the driving force of the change of careers?
It truly has been a journey. It's been a process. So when I was in architecture school, all I wanted to do was design the beautiful building. And then my first job out of architecture school was working with Buckminster Fuller. That's what brought me to Philadelphia, which was what I consider a miracle because he had been my idol. And a series of events that were just so fortuitous that brought me to have a correspondence with him, and then he offered me a job right after school. And he was nothing about beauty. Okay, he was about solving the world's shelter issues and doing more with less and economizing in materials. And so I had a change of, I got challenged by this. So then my last stint in architecture was designing biotechnology laboratories. Well, you can't get further from beauty than that. And finally, that drove me. What I did is I took a leave of absence, and I met this woman who was opening this store that was renting out evening clothes, like designer evening clothes. So we opened the store together, and then that lasted for 4 years. And then I started my business because I knew how to sew really well, but also the design element. I had designed a lot of my clothes. And then, so I thought, oh, I'm going to, design these beautiful dresses for these beautiful women. Well, that got old fast because, you could put a sack on a beautiful woman and she's still beautiful, but I got challenged by the problem figure. Okay, so I had two wonderful assistants, and what we did is we produced 30 magnificent, luxurious evening gowns for maternity gowns. And so these women could feel really sexy, but they didn't have to keep it. So we rented them out. And that was kind of what put me on the national thing, the national map. And then, so then I noticed that some of my gorgeous, filthy rich clients were absolutely miserable. And then I had these like large women who just had nothing but exuding confidence. And I thought, what is wrong with this picture, And what ended up happening is what I figured out was the issue was low self-esteem. And I thought, you know what, you could get dressed up all you want, but if you don't have your self-esteem, it's a problem, So I went back to school and graduated with my master's in counseling psychology when I was 50. So then I designed this program. It's a 12 workshop program called Living a Fearless Life. And that was piloted in the Philadelphia prison system. And the commissioner of prisons just loved it. But the board would not give me any money. The board was comprised of 32 men and 2 women. And because it wasn't studied, yet the administrator said, but their behaviors change in a very short period of time, So I started doing it for different groups of at-risk women. So now my employer is the Salvation Army, and it's another world that many people don't see, and it's a whirlpool of trauma. But I've had some successes. So if you can help one person turn the page like that, I mean, there's no amount of money that would give me a finer reward. So that's kind of the process.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing that. It is unique and quite interesting where you are now, and it your journey or your career led you into counseling psychology and managing or helping women to manage their mental health. Um, what were some of the things that surprised you in that space, in the mental health space, or what you saw with women?
Well, what awes me every day is how a traumatic experience can literally physically change your brain. And I mean, I have worked with schizophrenics before, but they've all been medicated. I mean, no one is mandated to go to a psychiatrist or, take their meds. And so literally, I mean, there are times when I go, so how are the voices today, Kathy? So that surprises me. And also what it does, like I've always said thank you every day. But since I've been working here, I'm obligated to help these women because why did I have loving parents and such a cheery little childhood, And to hear that this woman's mother trafficked her when she was just 10 years old. I mean, okay, so I am now obligated. I feel obligated to help these women.
It's so true what you said that, the effects of trauma, and when, a child is continually traumatized, the ramifications as they go through their life and are trying to deal with things. And as you say, even if they sometimes get to where they want to go, they still have that insecurity, or they may still have that insecurity. It may be holding them back. It's like that, their own imposed glass ceiling, so to speak, because they've, of whatever that particular trauma may be. What have been some of the tools and things that you have found that have been really helpful in helping people break through and regain their confidence?
One of this is a very simple tool, but the effects are pretty remarkable, and that's the tapping and sort of redirecting the energy. I would say I found that something that has to be worked out here is trust, because they have every reason not to want to trust anyone because of their experience. So it's getting them to trust, and they see that if I have this one woman who I've helped, that gives them sort of the motivation to, because it takes them a long time to come see me, because of that. It's like, in fact, this was absolutely remarkable, but one of the women said, "I am so glad you call yourself a counselor and not a therapist." And I thought, well, why? I mean, what is the difference? And she says, well, if you break up the word into therapist, it's the rapist.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, oh my God, never. So it's and I have them read to me, and it's very interesting what they select to read to me. I do the program twice a year with them, because it's it's a kind of a transient group, So, and also what we do to work together is, instead of internalizing the trauma, I mean, the trauma, it's in the muscle tissue. It's in the muscle tissue. I mean, there's energy healers that can work through this. And so what I try to do is to let them know that they are capable of looking at their trauma as if they're watching a movie. And that seems to, they want to do that.
I'm happy that Mitzi asked about the confidence, because that leads me into your book, The Divine Language of Confidence. Can you tell us how that book came about? What was the motivation and the inspiration behind the book? The title is captivating, so I am excited to hear.
Okay, well, you actually blended the titles of my two books kind of together. So the first book is The Divine Language of Coincidence, and then the second one is Consciousness Beyond Death. So, well, what happened, I experienced many miracles starting at the age of 19. And what my definition of a miracle is getting exactly what you needed just the right time. Okay. So the first thing that happened is I was 19 and I was going through this existential angst. I'm probably like a lot of 19-year-olds, and there were two issues that I considered to be unsolvable. I mean, I didn't know how to iron them out. And I thought like I was doomed. And within 2 months, actually it was about 3 months, I had a dream and I met a man. And somehow this man was able to help me through the threshold. Okay, so basically the dream, I'm just going to make it into like a couple sentences. I'm wearing a bridal dress on a stage, and there's no groom because I really didn't like the idea of marriage, you know. So there's no groom, but I'm in a plexiglass box, and there's all these people here to see me, and I'm just, you know, going on and on about, I'm thinking, oh, it's so wonderful, these people are here. And then, okay, other things happen, and then I'm in a room, like a hall, and all the guests, I guess, are filing like it's a reception line, and but some of them would just walk without looking at me. Some would just turn their heads, and some would. Only two people actually smiled. It was my best friend and a family friend, and so I'm like kind of anxious, like, okay, what are they gonna, what's this one gonna do? And then I look down, and I'm wearing the white, the wedding dress, but I'm in a coffin. And I just thought that for sure what that you know portended was my imminent death. Like, oh, is it going to be a truck that's going to hit me? You know what? So this man told me that what this meant, he knew my issues. He said, what this means, it has nothing to do with physical death. He said, what it means is that what's dead is what's no longer serving you. So the new will come and supplant what is no longer serving you. Dead, death. And it was transforming. I was transformed. I was brought into womanhood. And that just didn't, it was not lost on me how these two issues, just like that, are gone. And I started paying attention, and more things happened. And then I tell people, and they would go, oh, you know, these things only happen to you. But I knew that that wasn't true because I'm not special, you know, I'm, you know, like a saint or a guru or anything like that. And then in 2000, a medium told me I was going to write a book. And how I got with her, all this is in the book. Just, it was like a choreographer was designing my life, and I was just dancing along, you know. And so she told me that I was going to write a book. And I mean, to me, that was very unappealing to me. And I said to her, I said, I'm sorry. I said, you know, that's not in the cards, because she was like world famous, and how I got to her is, it wasn't my will, you know, but that's what happened. And I said, number one, I have nothing to say. And number two, I said, I'm a people person. I'm not going to sequester myself and write a book. And she said, word for word, she said, Spirit says when she's ready, there are many spirits here to help her and many hands on earth. And that's exactly how it went down.
Wow.
So what happened in 2011, I was reconnecting with a high school friend, and I told her my latest miracle. And she says, oh, Sophia, these things only happen to you. And this time something clicked. And I thought, wait a second. I mean, everyone has a miracle story, a coincidence story, you know, a sign from the other side. But my whole life has been this way. Why did I have so many miracles? And so just I'm gonna fall back a little bit and sort of give an explanation of what I consider to be a coincidence versus a miracle. So a coincidence can be, you know, like the other day, I was writing the word trajectory. Okay, I mean, a lot of people use that word, but it's not like at the tip of everybody's tongue. And just the instant that I'm writing trajectory, somebody on TV said the word at exactly the same minute. And I'm like, oh, wow. But there was no meaning to it, like, I mean, if I wanted to be creative, I could dream up some meaning, but it was really not very meaningful. But and when these coincidences happen that are bigger than me, like, I mean, I can't help myself but take action. And that's what I realized was the key. If I just said, oh my God, that's such a coincidence, and let it go, it just remains a coincidence. But if you take action, I mean, it's just remarkable what has come my way. And if I hadn't taken the action I took, the miracle would not have come to me. So that's basically how. So I decided that, so that's when because I listed all what I considered were my coincidences and the miracles. And it seemed that if I would not have had the miracle had I not taken action. And then I was also asked a very interesting, thought-provoking question. Why so many miracles? And I am going to credit my mother, because my mother was a very, very religious person, but also one who extruded her spirituality came from her religion. I mean, it wasn't like she's just doing the moves, I mean, she prayed every morning, every night, but never pushed it on me. But as a toddler, so Greek is my first language, and so any word could be made into the diminutive, like the glass, and you can turn it into the little glass. So she would talk to me about Jesus as the little Jesus and the little Virgin Mary. So, she would say, now, if you want anything, you just ask little Jesus, because he loves children, and you just ask for whatever you want. And then she said, if you're scared and you need protection, just ask the little Virgin Mary. So what she did is she framed these figures as my friends that I can relate, that I can communicate with. So from being tiny, 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 conversing with unseen beings seemed very natural. So I believe that is part of the mix.
You brought up a really good point, which is that, and it's true, I think, for so many things in life, it's that taking action piece. And so often, I mean, we all have it where we have this little voice where we feel our gut reacting to something, whether it be positively or negatively. And sometimes we choose to listen to it, and sometimes we choose to fight it or not listen to it because we think it might be embarrassing, or because, it doesn't seem possible or whatever. But it's when we are much more attuned into ourselves and we take action on that, as you say, you sort of create those miracles.
Yes. Okay. So maybe I could give you a couple of examples.
Please.
Okay. So, my belief, my ontology is that there's this divine intelligence, divine wisdom that knows what's best for us better than we do, and communicates with us either via dreams or meeting a stranger that just happens to say exactly what you needed to hear, or puts coincidences in our paths as nudgings to go, because this wisdom wants us to be happy and to find our true purpose. So it's like when the coincidence is put in our path and we take action, what happens is we co-create the miracle. And so okay, so I also believe that one miracle is not bigger or less than another miracle. I feel that they're all the same strength, let's call it, you know? So, okay, so these two miracles happened to provide what I needed for my wedding. Okay? So the first one is I call my girlfriend. I'm calling my girlfriend, and a man answers. It's not her husband. So I go, Anne? Is Anne there? And this guy recognizes my voice, and he goes, Sophia, it's Jerry. You called me. You called me. Look, I'm really late for a meeting. Can I call you later? And he has an accent, so I know who this person is. It was somebody, an acquaintance, a social acquaintance. And I just couldn't believe that in all of Philadelphia, you know, I missed dial. And I said, Jerry, promise me you're going to call me. You have to call me. Okay, you promise me. I promise. I said, before you go, what's your telephone number? So I had misdialed the last digit. And I got this guy who happened for a pretty, just within just a few, 4 or 5 years, owned the Barclay Hotel in Philadelphia, this old world, beautiful old world hotel that later became a condos. So Frank and I decided we were going to get married on 4th of July, and the wedding was 4th of October. So that's 3 months. All the venues were, you know, like taken, and musicians and photographers. But, you know, I thought, oh, well, you know, we'll get a friend or we'll do this. And he called me. He called me. And as a result of that convergence, let's call it, he gave me the ballroom at the Barclay for free. And he threw in, which was grand, and threw in 2 nights at the presidential suite.
Wow.
Okay. So that's number one. And number two, and then you have to tell me which one each of you thinks is stranger. Okay, so I get a call from this woman who said that she found my driver's license in Rittenhouse Square. Well, that's pretty, you know, close to my house. And she said, how can I return it to you? Well, it turns out she only lived 2 blocks away. So I said, oh, just put it through the mail slot. She writes a nice little note. She and her boyfriend go to Oregon every year, and she loves Oregon because the license plate was an Oregon license plate. So, okay, great. 2 months later, same woman calls and says, I know you're going to think this is a little strange, but I just found your ATM card. Now, I don't lose cards, but I would go to this one ATM machine that would spit out the card right away, and then I would put it in my, you know, bag. But this time I went to another ATM that kept the card until the end when it says, would you like another transaction? Well, thinking that I had already put the card away, I walked away so that the next person can just wipe out my whole bank account, you know. Well, it was the same woman. And she said, I just couldn't believe it. I said, well, I can't believe it. She said, would you like me to put it through your mail slot? I go, no, we have to meet. You and I have to meet. You have to come to my studio. So she comes to my studio. I had this handmade soap from Oregon to thank her. This lovely young woman. Turns out she's a concert violinist. And as a result of that meeting, she got her friend who's a classic guitarist, and they played my favorite concierto, Concierto de Aranjuez, as I walked down the aisle as a wedding gift.
That's so beautiful.
So which one do you think is weirder?
Well, you know what? I think it's all part of the same path. It's all part of the same path of the miracle because it's all tied together. So I think it's one and the same.
Okay, all right. Though they were two different events. But what I would like your audience to take away is how easy it would have been when Jerry said, I'll call you later, to say, you don't have to. This was an accident. I mean, it's wild, but an accident. And how easy would it have been for me to, when this woman asked, can I put it through your mail slot, go, yeah, just put it through my mail slot. Thank you so much. But it was bigger than me. There was no, well, should I, pros and cons. It was just immediate. It was, and this is where the communication happens through our intuition. So it was my intuition that took over. And the more that this happens and your intuition has proven to be right, the more you trust the intuition. And then you end up with this faith where you don't worry about anything. Because even obstacles, I can't tell you how many times I have said, God, why are you doing this to me? You know, like some guy I was in love with, wouldn't like appear or whatever. And well, all those guys that I was in love with that wouldn't, engage with me, they went to prison, they got sick, they died, they went mentally ill. So I thanked God for those obstacles. So you get to a point where, oh, well, it's a lesson. Now, I must say that there's another event, and I won't go into it. It's in the book, but it is truly remarkable because I left my husband because of his anger issues, childhood traumas. And it got to the point I moved out and in with my friend. And I did not want to see this man ever in my life again. And within 2 months, okay, so I was gone for 6 months. The last 2 months, 3 amazingly remarkable coincidences happened, like unbelievable. That worked to bring us back together. And that was 2009. And he has not had one anger episode since. He's completely transformed. And I'm married to my dream guy.
I'm so curious as to what those 3 things are. I'll have to read the book. As I'm sure a lot of our audience is curious too, so they'll have to read the book too.
Thank you. We're gonna end now, or else I'll have questions and keep you beyond your time. I hope that we can extend an invitation for you to return at a later date because you still have not shared everything with us. And I love your wisdom. I love your intuition. And I'm sure that what we are feeling on screen, our listeners will be able to experience it audibly. So thank you so much, Sophia.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for joining us today on Transforming Lives Panel Podcast. We hope that you received some nuggets of wisdom and seeds to plant along your journey of transformation. If you enjoyed what you heard today, we encourage you to let us know and to share us with those that matter in your life. If you would like to connect with anyone from the panel or our guest speaker, you can find all of the ways to connect in our show notes. We have so much gratitude for you, and we are so thankful to be a part of your day. Until next time, take great care.